Hi Algebra 2 students, this video is for Thursday, October 23rd to keep us on track while I'm away. So listen carefully for the instructions. So you see here this is a warm-up. What I need you to do is take out your composition book and go ahead and work the warm-up just like we would in class. You're going to need to hit pause on this video so that you can do the 4 problems. Once you've completed the 4 problems, then you can continue on with the video. So hit pause and do the 4 problems. Okay, you have done the 4 problems, so let's check and see what you got for your answers. I want you to correct your answers in a different colored pen so I can check and see when I return that you've done these 4 problems okay. So number 1, we started by subtracting 25 to both sides, square rooting both sides. From what we've learned, when we square root a negative, we get plus or minus 5i. Number 2, subtract 48, divide by 3, square root both sides, x equals plus or minus 4i. Number 3, add 25 to both sides, divide by negative 5. So we have x squared equals negative 30, square root both sides, x equals plus or minus I root 30. Finally, on number 4, add 12 to both sides, divide by 4, square root both sides, x equals plus or minus I root 3. So 2 things I want you to check. Do you have plus and minus on all 4 problems? Also, do you remember when you square root a negative that the square root of negative 1 comes out as an I? So give yourself a moment. You may need to hit pause. Make sure you've checked all your work. And once you've checked, then go ahead and return to the video for today's lesson. So what I need you to do now is to get out your student journal, open to page 56, and we're going to work through the exploration together. Once you have your student journal out, let's begin work. So this first one says, use the method outlined in exploration 1. So we didn't do that, so we're going to walk through this together. It says value of c needed to complete the square. What we're trying to do here is turn this expression into a perfect square trinomial. So remember that it's a perfect square on the front and perfect square on the back. So if I factored this, what would c need to be to have a middle term of 1? So I ask yourself, what multiplies to this number and adds to 2? Well, hopefully you realize that that is 1. Okay, and it says expression written as a binomial squared, which means if we factor this and I plug in 1, x squared plus 2x plus 1, and I factor x plus 1 times x plus 1, then in here x plus 1 quantity squared. Okay, so same thing here. I need a number that multiplies to give you c and adds to 4. And when I factor it, could be a perfect square trinomial. So c would need to be 4. And again, if I plug in over here, x squared plus 4x plus 4 is my c value, I get x plus 2 times x plus 2, which would factor to x plus 2 squared. So I think you're getting the hang of it. What would c need to be? A perfect square that would complete this perfect square trinomial. So what multiplies to c and adds to 8? So x squared plus 8x plus 16 would factor to x plus 4 times x plus 4. So c needs to be 16, which would factor to x plus 4 quantity squared. And let's do one more. X plus 10x plus c. What does c need to be? And hopefully you're figuring out by now that c would need to be 25. That would give me x plus 5 times x plus 5, which gives me x plus 5 quantity squared. Now our goal here is to figure out from this expression here, how could we get to this binomial squared? And so that's what it says in B. Okay, what are the relationships between D and B? So this term here, the middle term, and this right here. Okay. Also, how are C and D related in each case? So this number C, which would be here, and then there. I have C, and then the number here. I've got 16, and then 4. And hopefully you're realizing the relationship between C and D is that C, the square root of C equals D, right? Okay. The harder one might be the relationship between B and D. Or excuse me. Yes, B and D. Maybe not as hard. Looks like B divided by 2 gives you D. So what this is leading you to is how do you find that last term, okay? And we will start working on that in the next section. But what we're going to find is the middle term, B divided by 2 squared, okay, is what we're looking for. And that's at C right there. So 10 divided by 2, which is 5, squared gives me C. 8 divided by 2 squared gives me C. 4 divided by 2 squared gives me C. 2 divided by 2 squared gives me C. Alright, let's do some examples. So on the next, we're actually 2 pages over, page 58 of the student journal. It says in each of the exercises we're going to solve using square roots. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our perfect square trinomial and then solve it using our method that we have used before. So if this perfect square trinomial x squared plus 4x plus 4, what would that factor to? That would be x plus 2 times x plus 2 equals 2. And we know that that equals x plus 2 quantity squared. So that's what we're wanting to get to. In order to use square roots, we need a quantity squared or the x squared term by itself. So now that I've done that, I can square root both sides. And I get x plus 2 equals plus or minus root 2. And I can solve my equation by subtracting 2 to both sides. X equals plus or minus root 2 minus 2. And that would be my answer. So, my goal for you, can you go from this perfect squared trinomial to the quantity squared? So let's take a look at t squared minus 400t plus 400. First thing I see are the signs. Plus means they're both positive, or excuse me, they're the same and both negative. So, how does this factor? Well, the square root of 400 is 20, so that would be t minus 20 squared equals 300. So, now I can remove the squared, square root both sides, and I get t minus 20 equals plus or minus root 300, and add my 20 over, and I get plus or minus 300 plus 20. And then I ask you, do you think we can leave it that way? And hopefully you're thinking, no way, because 300 has a perfect square in it. The square root, the perfect square in 300 is 100, so t equals plus or minus 100 times 3 plus 20, and the 100 gets to come out as a 10. So t equals plus or minus 10 root 3 plus 20. And that would be my final answer. So let's do it again. Notice that number 3 is a perfect, whoops, sorry about that. Notice that number 3 is a perfect square trinomial. Okay. The square root of 9 is 3w. The square root of 1 is 1 squared equals negative 18. Okay. I square root both sides. I get 3w plus 1. Okay, let's check out that plus or minus. What perfect square is in 18? Well, hopefully you're thinking that's -1 times 9 times 2. So I get plus or minus 3i root 2. Okay, I need to subtract over my 1. 3w equals plus or minus 3i root 2 minus 1. And finally divide by 3. So I'm going to divide this whole side by 3. W equals plus or minus 3i root 2 minus 1 over 3, which we could divide both of those by 3. W equals plus or minus 3i root 2 over 3 minus 1/3, and then cancel these 3's. W equals plus or minus I root 2 minus 1/3. Very nice. Okay. So what we're going to see in this next one is to what's called completing the square. Find the expression of C that makes it a perfect square trinomial. Okay, and that's what we're going to use from the discovery of the b divided by 2 squared. So when we want to write this as a perfect squared trinomial, we take the b term, -14, divide it by 2, and square it. So that would be -7 squared, which is 49. So that would give me the perfect square trinomial y squared minus 14y plus 49. And if I wanted to factor that, signs are the same, both are negative. Y minus 7 times y minus 7 would equal y minus 7 squared. So let's do it again. Let's find a perfect square for C. So I take the middle term b, 17, divide it by 2, and square it. And I would get 289. Oops, I don't need that parentheses. Over 4. I just squared the top and I squared the bottom. So that would give me s squared plus 17s plus 289 over 4. And when I go to factor that, I'm going to use that b over 2 as for both of my quantities. I'm going to get s plus 17 over 2 and s plus 17 over 2. Notice if I FOILed this, I'd get s squared plus 17 over 2s plus 17 over 2s plus the 289 over 4, and that would give me my middle term there. So this factors to s plus 17 over 2 squared. Let's do it one more time. For 6, I take my middle term, 24, divided by 2, and square it. 24 divided by 2 is 12. Squared gives me 144. So my new trinomial would be z squared plus 24z plus 144, which would factor to z plus 12 and z plus 12, which can be written as z plus 12 squared. Okay. So here's your homework, which is also on the Google Calendar. A reminder that I mentioned in class, you must have taken notes on the video. So if you have just watched it, okay, you need to go back and make sure that you've taken notes, because I will also check your student journal to make sure that you've taken notes, worked the examples, and then you're set up very nicely for your homework. Thanks so much for watching the video. You may need to rewatch it, and I'll see you on Monday.